Hello, and welcome back to the Handy Outdoorsman. 3 years ago, I did a design or a project where I used a AC disconnect electrical box and turned it into a lock box for a trail camera. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link in the description below, and make sure you check it out so you kind of understand what I'm going to be talking about here over the next couple of minutes. That design, or this design, has served me well. I have not lost a camera since I started using this as a lockbox for all of my trail cameras, and it's been 3 years since I've done so, and it's worked wonderfully for me, so I've not had an issue with it. I have had some comments indicating that this is a poor design, that it doesn't keep the camera secure. And what they're referring to is the tab where the lock goes through is very weak, and that somebody could, once the lock's in here, stick a screwdriver or a crowbar in there and move it up and down and eventually break this tab off here on the box. Let me give you a close-up of what that looks like. And so you can go ahead and take that tab and move it back and forth, and eventually this tab will break off. Now, I've not had any problems of anybody doing that. I've not had any kind of problem with anybody trying to break into my cameras at all. And in fact, it's worked out so well that I don't even have bugs getting into the cavity of the lockbox itself because of the foam. It's waterproof. I like the design. But I did start thinking about the comments. I do read them, and you know what? I'm sure that if somebody had a desire, the persistence to stand there and try and break this tab off, that they could probably do it. It's going to take them a while, but you never know. So I started thinking about what I could do to modify this box, and so I came up with a $2 fix. Originally, this box was $7 for me to get and to use. That was 3 years ago. Now they're $10, and even with the $2 fix that I'm going to show you here in a minute, we're talking 12 bucks. And there's nowhere you can go out and get a trail cam lockbox for $12. So let me show you what I did to make this box even more secure. What I have here is a 2-inch by 1/8 inch piece of steel, and I picked this up at my local home center. What this does is it matches the same width as the tab on the electrical box that I'm using. Therefore, it'll make sure that it covers up the existing tabs and keeps it strong. Now, the one nice thing about using this electrical box is that it already has some holes drilled in the bottom, and I'll use those holes to secure the steel plate to the box itself. But once you get the right size width steel plate, then what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut off a piece that's equal to the tab so that I can use that to reinforce the tab itself. So I went ahead and put my piece of steel into my vise. I now go ahead and take my grinder and go ahead and cut this off. And this piece is exactly the piece I need to fit that tab on the electrical box. So let me go ahead and cut this out, and we'll go ahead and go to the next step after that. Now that I've got the holes marked on where I need to drill the holes, for the two rivets and also for the where the lock's going to go, I went ahead and put the piece of steel inside a pair of vice grips so that I can hold it as the drill bit goes through the steel. I've got somewhere to hold it and it's not going to spin on the bit. So make sure that you have something to hold the steel when you're trying to drill it like this. Now what would have probably been easier to do was to probably mark the holes before you cut it off, the long strip that you had in the vise, and then that way you've got something to hold on to when you're putting it through the drill. So before I go any further, I wanted to make sure that everything was lining up. So I've taken my piece of steel and I've clamped it underneath the tab, and I've put my two rivets in to make sure that the holes line up. And then I went ahead and remarked this hole, make sure everything lined up so that this piece of steel will fit properly. Now what I plan to do next is go ahead and drill where I'm going to put the lock into the piece of steel. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to drill the hole to be the exact same size. This is just a little bigger than the hole here. That way the hole on the steel will be a little bit bigger, and then when I go to put the lock through, if I am a little bit off on the hole, then there'll still be enough room to get the lock through and lock it all in. Now to attach the plate onto the box itself, I'm using rivets. And as you can see on the left, I've already gone ahead and secured that piece to the box using the rivets. And no one can come in and take a screwdriver or anything and unscrew it or whatnot. They're going to have to, you know, pretty much pop those or drill out those rivets. So that's going to be quite a bit of work. And the nice thing of it is that it even leaves a small profile on the inside where it should not interfere with the camera going in. So that's how I plan on securing the plate itself to the box. Once you get your steel plate attached to the box, you're going to need to open up this slot where the tab goes through. As you can see on the original box, it's just enough room for the tab that is designed in the box to go through. Now you'll need to go ahead and enlarge that to accept your steel plate. Now I've used my grinder to cut this. If you got a Dremel, it would be much easier to do. I just don't happen to have one. But you need to make sure that you enlarge the slot for the steel plate. You know, with the modifications that we just did to this box, I feel even more secure with this camera out into the woods. Now, let me say this. You know, nothing is foolproof. I'm not trying to create a Fort Knox lock box for my trail camera. I'm just trying to create a box that will allow me to secure my trail cameras when they're out in the woods, and, you know, to kind of keep the honest guy honest. If somebody wants something, no matter how well it's locked up, secured, somebody's going to try and get it if they really, really want it. You know, people say, well, they can bring out bolt cutters, they can bring out a screwdriver, you know, break this off. Heck, they could even bring out a chainsaw and cut the tree down. So if somebody really wanted something, they'll get it. But this just gives me an additional peace of mind knowing that the little thing that needed to be fixed is fixed. And so now you have a $12 lockbox for your trail cameras. You can take it out in the woods, leave it there, and feel secure that it'll be there when you get back. So I hope that today's project has motivated you to create your own lockbox. And again, if you haven't seen the video where I went through and each step to create one and how to modify it to create for your trail camera, please go look in the description now and watch that video, and then come back and make the modifications. And if you've already made one, I encourage you to make this small modification so that your lockbox is even more secure. So I hope you learned something today. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, take care and God bless.